Okay, so today we are covering 8.3, which is polynomial division, and we're going to be using what's called synthetic division. And once you get used to like the flow of it, it just becomes kind of very repetitive. Okay, so let's look at a problem like number 1. It says f of x equals x to the third minus 15x squared plus 71x minus 105. Oh. Hang on, let me try to get that clear. That's too dark. Where should they go? There. Okay, so f of x equals x cubed minus 15x squared plus 71x minus 105. And it is wanting us to find, first of all, f of 3. Now, we have done this in other ways by just, if you're finding f of 3, what does that mean to do? Before, we have just gone to all the x's and replaced them with 3's, okay? We're going to do a different method today called synthetic division. So it's going to try to find if this 3 in here is a 0, or in other words, an x-intercept of this function. Okay, so if we're using synthetic division, what you're going to do is use this number, and you're going to kind of make like a little division symbol. And then you're going to use just the coefficients, just the number parts of all of these terms. So in front of x cubed, I have a 1. In front of x squared, I have negative 15. In front of the x, I have 71, and then the constant is negative 105. Okay, so now what we're going to do, here's the flow of this. The very first thing you do is just drop down whatever this first number is. So I'm just dropping down that 1. Now, this number that's out here, you're going to multiply times this number and put your answer there. So I have 3 times 1, put my answer here, which is 3. And then just add this straight down. So I've got negative 15 plus 3, which gives me negative 12. And then you just do it over. You start it over. This number times that negative 12, put your answer there. So 3 times negative 12 gives me negative 36. Add it straight down, or in this case, I guess it's going to be subtract. So 71 minus 36, which gives you 35. And then do it one last time. So 3 times 35, put your answer there. So 3 times 35 is positive 105. When you answer, so when I add that straight down, I get 0. This here is actually your remainder. And if it is a 0, what that's telling you is that 3 is a 0 or an x-intercept of this function. If I put this into my y equals and graphed it, it would cross the x-axis at 3. Okay, so what you put in as your answer is that f of 3 equals, you just put that 0. Whatever this number out here ends up being is your answer. Okay, and then it wants you to do it with 2 more numbers. The next thing it wants you to find is f of negative 5. So again, I'll just use the negative 5 and then make my division symbol. It's the same function, so I'm using these same 4 coefficients. So I have 1, negative 15, -71, and negative 105. So I'll drop down my 1 and then start my multiplication. So negative 5 times 1 gives me negative, negative 5. If I add this straight down, negative 15 and negative 5 gives me negative 20. So then I have negative 5 times negative 20, which is positive 100. When I add that straight down, I get 171. So negative 5 times 171. So in your calculator, gives you negative 855. Was that right? Did I do that right? 171 times negative 5 gives me negative 855. So when I add that straight down, it gives me negative 960. So this right here is your answer. That very last number, which is the remainder, is the answer to what f of negative 5 is, negative 960. And then it has one more that it wants you to do. The last one is find f of 7. So what does this mean? That f of negative 5 was negative 960. That means that this function is not going to cross the x-axis at negative 5. So let's look at the last one. Finding f of 7. So we're going to use a 7. Same function, so the same coefficients, which are 1, negative 15, 71, and negative 105. So same thing, we'll just drop down our 1 and then start the multiplication process. 7 times 1 gives me 7. Add this straight down. Negative 15 plus 7 is negative 8. So now I have 7 times negative 8, which gives me negative 56. And then add that straight down, or in this case, 71 minus 56, which gives me 15. And my last one, 7 times 15. So what does that give me? It does give me 105. So when I add it straight down, negative 105 plus 105 gives me 0. Okay, so 3 and 7 were actually both zeros of that function. Okay, and the negative 5 was not. But again, whatever this answer right here is, that's what you're putting in your answer blank. All right, number 2. The function is f of x equals x to the 4th.
Sorry, I'm late, Miss Hanson. What worksheet are we working this morning?
We are on this 8.3 that looks like this.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Uh-huh. And we're on number 2. So f of x equals x to the fourth minus x cubed minus 5x squared plus 36x minus 40. And it wants me to find f of -4.
Miss Hanson, your 36 should, on my paper, it has 38x.
Oh, you're right. I don't have my glasses. Thank you. I can't see. Thank you. That would have messed up the whole thing. So finding f of -4 using synthetic division. So we'll have the -4 out here, and then we'll have our little division symbol. And again, in this division symbol, we're just putting all of the coefficients of these terms, just the number part of them. So let's see, in front of x to the fourth, there's a 1. In front of x cubed, there's -1. In front of x squared, there's -5. In front of x, there is 38, and then your constant is -40. Same process, just dropping down your 1. So now, doing the multiplication, -4 times 1, and put your answer there. So -4 times 1 gives me -4. And again, you just add those numbers together, or just combine these numbers here. -1 and -4 gives me -5. And multiply. -4 times -5 gives me +20. Add this straight down. -5 plus 20 is 15. Multiply. -4 times 15 gives me -60. So when I add that straight down, or combine that, 38 and -60 gives me -22. And the last multiplication, -4 times -22 gives me positive, what is that, 88? And when I add this straight down, remember, the number that ends up at the very end is going to be your answer. So I have -40 plus 88, which gives me 48. So what you're actually doing here is, this is actually finding a point on the graph of this. When x is -4, your y, that's what's telling you what your y is going to end up being. So there would be a point left 4 and then up 48. That's what this is telling you. Okay, so that's why if it ends up being a 0, that means at this, whatever that x is, if the y is 0, that means it's on the x-axis at that point, which means that's why it's an x-intercept. So any other number besides a 0 means that this number does not cross the x, it doesn't cross the x-axis here. It's not an x-intercept. Okay, so 48 would be the answer to that one. Number 3. F of x equals 2x to the third plus x squared minus 9x plus 18. And it wants us to find two things. The first thing we're going to find is whether or not -3 is a solution. or a 0. So let's do, it wants me to find -3. And then after that, it's going to say, is 2 a 0? So we're finding two different things here. Let's do the -3 first. Using the coefficients. So 2 in front of x squared, there's a 1. In front of x, there's a -9. And your constant is 18. Dropping this down. So just bringing down my 2. -3 times 2 gives me -6. Add that down. 1 and -6 gives me -5. -3 times -5 gives me +15. -9 plus 15 gives me 6. And the last one, -3 times 6 gives me -18, which means I'm left over with 0. So there's the -3. Let's do the same thing with the 2. My coefficients are the same. 2, 1, -9, and 18. So let's drop this down. Drop down my 2. 2 times 2. Put your answer here, which gives me 4. Add it straight down. 1 and 4 gives me 5. 2 times 5 gives me 10. When I add this straight down, -9 and 10 just gives me 1. 2 times 1 gives me 2, and add that straight down, and it gives me 20. So if this is a multiple choice, so it's going to give you several different options here. So what you want to find is the one that says -3 is a 0, and 2 is not a 0. So -3 is a 0 of the polynomial because f of -3 equals 0. 2 is not a 0, right? It ends up being 20. So 2 is not a 0 because f of 2 is equal to 20. Which looks like it would be A in this situation, right? -3 is a 0 because f of -3 is 0. 2 is not a 0 because f of 2 was equal to 20. All right, number 4. F of, or h of x, I guess. X to the 4th plus 4x to the 3rd plus 3x squared minus 8x plus 12.
Minus 12.
Minus 12. Good thing y'all are here today. The first question it asked me is -2 a 0? Which means we'll use synthetic division again. Just same thing over and over today. There's not anything new. The next one has fractions, so that'll give us a little bit of issues, but everything is the same exact motions here. So all the coefficients, which are 1, 4, 3, -8, -12. Drop down your 1. Negative 2 times 1 gives me negative 2. Add this straight down. 4 and negative 2 gives me 2. Negative 2 times positive 2 is negative 4. Combine these. 3 and negative 4 gives me negative 1. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. Add these. Negative 8 plus 2 gives me negative 6. And negative 2 times negative 6 is positive 12. So I am left over with a 0, which means, yes, negative 2 is a 0. So it's going to ask you, is negative 2 a 0? So you would answer yes, because your remainder ended up being a 0. And it also wants me to check positive 1. Same coefficients. 1, 4, 3, negative 8, negative 12. Okay, try this one. I'll pause the video for a second. Try this one to see if 1 is a 0. And then let's see, it's 9:30. At 9:35, I will start doing the support section for this, which actually is just kind of a lot of the same. Okay, so I have everybody here for college algebra, and then I'll start support at 9:35. I will see y'all Friday.